Hey, 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 and welcome. Welcome to Terry Messenger's Genius Zone. And this is the place and the space where you can expect to grow, expand, and even discover your life purpose on our episodes. Now, today, if you love the thought of being empowered, if you love the thought of breaking through your childhood wounds, and you love the thought of creating a future that is so powerful where you can optimize your best life, I'm about to bring on a beautiful lady. She is a certified transformation trainer and she is a coach. She works with groups and individually. However, I think it's really important to say right at this very moment of time, she is really giving an individualized, bespoke, tailor-made method to help you to really break through some of your past wounds and step inside your empowered self. So, with no further ado, I give to you Afsheen Shah. Hi, Afsheen.
Hi, Terry. So happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me on.
I am so pleased that you are here. It is just such a pleasure. So, I always like to start with, well, firstly, where are you?
I am in Long Island, New York, in the United States, and I've lived here for 20 years now. It's been a long time.
Wow, New York, New
That's
York.
right.
Go, sister. So, I love that we can just reach each other wherever in the world. And, what I really want to talk about today is, what you are offering as this transformational coach that's really helping women. And inside the Zone of Genius container, I always know, especially when we're talking to really authentic people like yourself, we only really invite on board people that have an authentic story, they have an authentic passion, and they really have a mission. Because that way, when your client hears this, they're going to really know when they feel aligned with you. And I know that every single person really wants to feel that love, that nurture, and that support. So I love to start off with the question and go really, really deep, if you don't mind,
Not at all.
in where the original passion came from. So when you decided you wanted to transform your life, what was some of the dark nights of the soul, so to
Yeah.
speak,
Yeah.
that really, really, got you becoming this person who wanted to make a change?
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to share. So my journey itself lasted about 10 years, I would say. I was in the corporate world. I'm still in the corporate world. And I was working my way up that ladder, working hard, working around the clock, and needed to just be that woman that showed everybody, hey, I can be at the top and I can handle it and I can be just fine with all of it. And so here I was working crazy hours, and little by little, I felt this increasing emptiness and this restlessness inside. Didn't know where it was coming from. And at that time, because I was so disconnected from my true self and my spirituality, my answer was, well, that means that I'm not working hard enough. I need to do more. If I really want to feel good, I have to get everybody else's approval. I must not be doing enough to get that approval. So started working harder. I started taking on more work, and my health collapsed. Literally, like it was one thing after another. And I went to countless doctors. Nobody could figure out what was wrong with me. I had all of these weird symptoms, and they kept telling me, well, we just think you're depressed. We just think you're depressed. Maybe you should take medication. And that didn't sit right with me. I knew it was something deeper. So I was around 42 when it all kind of came to a head. I had a surgery where I was no longer able to have children, which that was one of my lifelong dreams. And so now here I am. I have everything in my professional life, but I felt as if my personal life really was falling apart. Around the same time, I broke up with a long-term relationship, someone I thought I was going to spend the rest of my life with. And between the two, everything just kind of fell apart. And I realized that I'd worked so hard building a professional life that I'd forgotten to have a personal life. And that realization hits you so hard when you realize, wow, if I died tomorrow, there would be nothing but the hours I have worked. What does that actually mean to me? What does that mean to the world? And to me, it meant that I hadn't lived. And so I decided then that I need to figure out why I feel the need to be this person who is so successful professionally, and yet I can't seem to get my personal life together. What is the missing link between the two? Why am I thriving in one area and barely surviving in the other? And so I started, reading. I did the self-help route, how to find happiness, all the books I read, how to find purpose, and nothing was clicking. And so I said, I don't think it's about taking more in. I think it's about letting go of what I've been holding on to. Maybe that's what I'm missing. And when I started letting go of the parts that weren't really me and the real me started to come out, I realized, oh, it's not about getting more, it's about giving more. And that's how I got into coaching, because that realization literally changed my world. And nothing was about what more can I do or get. It was what more can I give and what more can I grow in the lives of others. And
Wow,
yeah,
that's amazing.
thank
And
you.
I mean, your life turned around. You worked with Jack Canfield in his transformation training. Can
Yeah.
you talk about what was one of the biggest kind of breakthrough experiences, what it actually got you to deal with, and that process of how you actually broke through it and what happened during that time?
Oh, I love that you asked that question. I'm getting chills right now from just you asking that, because that man is magical, first of all. When he talks about taking accountability for your life and how your current reality is based on every decision you've made up until now. And that's not, in a blaming way. It's more about, oh my God, if I created this, then I can change what I'm creating by changing my decisions and changing how I'm looking at everything. And he was the one that really introduced me to the whole victim mindset. I didn't realize that I had been living my life in a victim mindset. Everything was happening to me. And if something went wrong, it was somebody else's fault or it was a circumstance. It was never my fault. And he literally taught me to say, no, everything is created because of something I have done. Doesn't make it bad, but it puts you in control. And that's where my breakthrough came, when I realized, oh my God, I am in control. That means I get to control whether I wake up feeling joyful or sad. If I'm feeling depressed, I get to change that around by how I'm thinking, and the thoughts I'm thinking are then changing the feelings I'm having. And then when I change the feelings I'm having, I'm also changing the actions I'll be taking. And that literally set me on a completely different path once I was able to do that.
Isn't that incredible? And I know that Napoleon Hill said it very well too.
Yeah.
And I was teaching the laws of success in quite a large class, and it actually drew a lot of men into this particular program. And I thought it was said very well. It says, become the master of your destiny, not the victim of your history.
Yes. Yes. I love Napoleon Hill, by the way. Another
Yes.
game changer. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Yes. And so, when you do that, when you become the master of your future, what you're really doing is shaping your future self now.
Mm.
And that's what I do with my clients. I show them, okay, you may be here right now and you want to get over here. That's fine. All you have to do is figure out the steps that you need to take to get there. But you have to know where you're starting, right? And that's a lot of times that's the piece that people miss. They know what they want, but they haven't fully acknowledged where they are, because sometimes it's just too painful to admit where you are, or to, say to yourself, wow, I'm not happy where I am. And
Absolutely.
right? Yeah. So the first step is that self acknowledgement, the self acceptance. And then once you have that, you can embrace that and use it to recreate your future in a way that aligns with who you actually want to be, and not just kind of float down the river waiting for the future to happen.
Wow, absolutely. It's almost like I heard Joe Dispenza saying this as well, and he really describes the nervous system and the way we recode ourselves so well. He talks about rewiring and refiring, and he says that our subconscious is our body.
Yeah.
Our whole entire body is the map of our past, and it has our DNA, and it has all of our filing cabinets with memory. And that's why sometimes we forget on a logical level, but something will trigger us and suddenly we'll, have that jolt, and then we go into a reaction. And he says, rather than allowing the subconscious to be in that autopilot fight flight mode where it's seeking to go back and refer to the past. I mean, let's face it, the past may have been where we were put down, where we were told we weren't good enough, where we may have been abused, and all of those things which shrink us. He says, rather than referring to the past, quantum leap into the future and reset your whole nervous system so that you can begin thinking of who you want to be in that empowered state. I love that. I absolutely love that. So tell us about one of the strategies, processes perhaps you use on your clients. And I do happen to know that you do offer a very rare and bespoke, individualized, tailor-made service. So, for those of you who really love the thought of having that one-on-one, Afsheen, Shah is your girl, especially, if you are ready to break through and really become empowered. But can you talk me through perhaps a process that you learned through Jack, and what that involves, where we can kind of experience? So let's just say somebody is held back by a limiting belief.
Yeah.
The limiting belief, as we both know, comes from something in the
In the
past.
past, absolutely.
So so typically, because you're an empowerment coach, firstly, let's start with this question. What are typically the emotions, the negative emotions that people are usually suffering, when they come to see you?
So what I get a lot of is self-doubt, a really powerful inner critic that is always there, basically shouting in their ear, I can't believe you just did that. Who does that? Oh, you're so dumb. You never get anything right. And these are, when I tell you, highly intelligent, successful women. And this is their self-talk, right? The rest of the world sees them as so accomplished. But when they look at themselves in the mirror, all they see is someone who can never do enough, who should always somehow be better, who should be doing more and really getting everything perfect. They're striving for this standard of perfection that none of us can achieve. It's impossible, and no human is perfect. But unfortunately, because of the past programming, they have bought into this belief that everything they do has to be better than everybody around them. So when you are constantly setting that standard for yourself, even a tiny mistake, the self-criticism comes barreling in. And now you're talking to yourself as if, you're abusing yourself, basically. So whatever, emotional, physical, mental abuse that may have occurred in their past, that person may be out of the picture, but they've taken that role on for themselves. and now they become their own abuser. And one of the first questions I always ask them, well, what went through your mind? And when I hear these comments like, oh, I'm such an idiot, I shouldn't have done that. I say, okay, now I want you to pretend your best friend just had the same thing happen. What would you say to her? And they say, oh my God, I would help her. I would let her know that everybody makes mistakes. And I said, okay, so why are you not being your own best friend right now? And it's
Wow.
always like, you see the look on their face because they never put it together that the way they treat themselves is so much worse than they're treating everybody around them. So the first part that I really work with is getting them to release all these beliefs that they've created about themselves, release the stories they made up about how they're not enough. And once we really establish a new foundation for them, the self-love, the self-acceptance, we bring that in and replace those thoughts with the prior thoughts, then what we're actually doing is moving into the second phase, which is reclaiming who they always were, which is this beautiful, incredible, successful human being who has somehow been kind of pushed into the darkness and out of the light. We bring her back into the light. And then we use her to create the identity that they want for the future. Now, some people call that the higher self, right? When you're bringing yourself back to center, your higher self always wants the best for you. And so when we reclaim the part that was kind of shunned for so long, and you bring your higher self back in, now you're going to be taking actions that are from a loving place, from a place of self-compassion, and really putting yourself first. And it's not about being selfish. It's not about, just suddenly ignoring everybody else's needs. It's about really understanding that if you're not stopping to fill your own cup up, doesn't matter what you're doing for everybody else, your cup's going to go empty. And then you're not going to be able to do anything for anyone, including yourself. So those are really 3 phases of the process: release, reclaim, and then rebuild and reframe.
Oh, that's amazing. That's so, so, so good. Do you think that this woman is like her like an inner personality? And, I always say that the client that is really aligned is really, the person that we were, perhaps, whether it's, 6 days ago or 6 years ago,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
What do you feel that was there, was really what they couldn't attain, what was blocking them through their limiting beliefs? Like, did it affect their personal lives, or was it affecting their ability to succeed? Like, typically what's happening here?
So it's a mixture there, right? Some are thriving in the professional setting. They are just, through the roof, but their personal life leaves them feeling less than fulfilled. And then in my case, it was a little bit of both. So I had achieved success in my professional life for a long time. But when my personal life was suffering, our identity is so intertwined at this point. I couldn't just leave that at home and show up powerfully in my professional life anymore, right? Because it was inevitably spilling over into that. And so when I reclaimed my own power in my personal life, I started showing up as a better leader. I truly, truly believe that you have to be the CEO of your own life first. And
Yes.
then you can become a leader in every other area of your life, including your professional life. So it's definitely a mixture. But what I find is at some point, if you're not tending to yourself as just a human and not a lawyer, doctor, teacher, nurse, whatever your title is, it's not going to matter what that title is, because the human part of you is going to be pulling that part of you down.
Yeah. And it sounds like this woman typically is a high achiever, ambitious, wants the best, is very self-critical,
Yeah.
and, hard on herself. It sounds like she's really quite hard on herself.
Yeah.
And so rather than seeing those wins that she's having and focusing on them. It sounds like she's more looking at, what she fouled up and that,
Yes.
old self-talk. And, obviously I hear too that she may have one side of the coin, but then she's missing the other. And
Yes.
then it's kind of spilling over. And I know that if it happens to be that the career side is great, but the personal life is, really suffering, they
Mm-hmm.
can go into that kind of inner silence where they start to feel like the imposter,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then and then it can spill over, really impacting them. So, I guess it's not about perfection, is it really, Afsheen? I mean, I've come to know that I think if we were looking at this, and it draws me to my next question with you, which I hope you don't mind me asking because it's quite a deep question. But you had a situation where you had to actually do something so that no longer could you have or bear children.
Yeah.
And, so that kind of leads me into saying that, it's not about living the perfect life, but it's about being okay with everything that actually happens to us
Yeah.
and going into that surrender. So,
Yeah.
can you talk us through how your personal life, and obviously you went through some, hardcore stuff as a woman,
Yeah.
where you had to, obviously deal with that piece of your life. Are you prepared to go into as much detail as
Absolutely. Yeah,
you
absolutely.
feel
I,
so?
yeah, so and I'm glad you brought that up because I just recently wrote about this. I was a collaborating author in a book, and it was the first time I ever shared that had happened to me. And I think I was finally ready to just really be as open and vulnerable as possible, which was part of my journey once I really started, accepting where I was in life. And so I had, for as long as I can remember, I had wanted to be a mother. And it was just something that I took for granted. You grow up, you get married, you become a mother. That was the story I knew. That was what I was told. And I call it the good girl programming, right? The good girl, she goes to school, she gets a good job, she gets married, she gets the house, she has the babies. And now you're a real woman because you were able to do all of that. So when I couldn't have children, and then I had a failed adoption after I found out I couldn't have children, I felt like I wasn't a real woman. And it really, emotionally, mentally, even physically, it created this form of self-loathing almost where, ugh, you can't even perform the one task that women are created for. There's this deep sense of loss, wounding, but also almost like a blaming of self that arises when you think you failed at the one essential task that you were born for. And that put me in a very dark place for a long time. All of my friends have children. Or I should say, at least most of them, they're married or they're in amazing relationships and they're doing things together because they have the children as a bond. And so I kind of felt like I was always the outsider looking in. Same way I felt at work because there I also wasn't, yes, I was a good worker, but I wasn't a mother. So when conversations were had, it was about, oh, how do you balance work with being a mom? Moms have it so hard. So I then put up the expectation on myself, well, I better work harder because I don't have children.
Oh,
So
I see. Yes.
yeah. So I need to prove my value to my job and to the world through some other means.
And you obviously had a feeling at one point where you didn't feel whole. And so obviously there was something that changed and
Yeah.
that really evolved in you, that shifted your perception
Yeah.
and, that healed that mother wound.
Yeah.
And that really went deep to actually let you know that you were actually born and designed exactly the way that you
Yeah.
are, and everything actually is exactly how it's supposed to be. So
Yes.
tell me, like, I mean, for, I guess, from woman to woman, there
Mhm.
may be certain things that may not be necessarily in this area, but there may be other parts where they feel like they've failed or they've fallen down,
Yes.
and where they haven't been able to meet that fulcrum circle, if you will.
Yeah.
Um, can you give us perhaps a couple of your little processes and thoughts about what you would say to that woman, and what you actually do, and what you did for yourself, and what actually got you through it, and obviously what you would do for the woman coming into your program?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the first thing I want to say is, for anyone hearing this who thinks that they have failed in any way, you have not failed. You have not failed at all. What you have done is fulfill the purpose you were meant to be here for. That mentally, that was my first big shift that I had to make. That I had to realize we're not all here to do the same thing. We're not all here for the same purpose. And if we were, then you know what? There would be pieces that would be missing in people's lives. My purpose, as far as I can tell, is to not have been blessed with kids in this lifetime, because now I can be supportive of other people. You know, I have rescue animals who I love dearly, and I don't know that I would have had that opportunity to have so many rescue animals if I had had kids, right? Because there's only so much one person can do at one time. So I had to really kind of think through about, why is it bothering me so much that I don't have children? Is it the fact that I lost my dream of having children, or is it because I feel less of a person? And I realized the stronger of the two was, I felt like less of a person. And I said, wow, so I am defining my worth on whether I'm a mother or not. That's on me. That I chose to let my worth be based on something that was out of my control. How do I take that back in my control? And the way I did that was realizing that, you know what? I have to shift how I'm thinking about this. I was in a victim mindset by thinking, look what happened to me. Instead of looking at what happened to me, I started to ask, what else is possible for me?
Yes, I love that. So what you thought was impossible, you changed to I'm possible. I
Yeah.
love that.
Yes, yes. And that's when, the minute I made that shift, and it wasn't overnight. So let me be clear. There was a lot of crying. There was a lot of writing. Writing is something I recommend to everybody. Even if you don't want to journal, I'm not a big journaler, but if something comes into my head, I just start writing. Whatever is coming out, I just let it flow. There was a lot of that. Some of it was angry. Like, I had to let the anger out. You know,
Mhm.
a lot of people don't realize that when we get angry, when we get upset, that stays in your body if you're not expressing it or releasing it in some way. So that,
Wow, that's a huge gold nugget right there. So for if you're listening, this is the sort of, obviously guidance that Afsheen is giving to clients. So rather than letting it sort of sit in your body and fester and manifest in all these negative things where you keep on attracting that kind of loss, if you write it down and just express it, you're getting it from outside of your body and you're getting it on paper. How profound.
yeah,
So there's a huge nugget right there.
yes. And let me tell you, with my clients that have done that, they have seen a world of difference. And I always encourage people, don't censor what you're writing, whatever is coming out. And if you want to write, I hate God on a given day, don't feel shame over it. Don't feel guilt over it. You write that down and you get it out. Nobody is looking at it except for you. And it's purely for you to understand what's going on the inside. Because the more you understand what's happening on the inside, the greater your power is to then change that. Right?
Whoa. So so the more that you get to know yourself on the inside, the
Yeah.
greater your power becomes.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
So what do you do with this woman to help her to really go through that process
Yeah.
and become self-aware and empowered?
Yeah. A lot of the one-on-one, we go very deep, right? And it's so funny because every call starts with, well, this week was fine. I don't have much to talk about. And then all of a sudden there's tears, there's, laughter all in one call. There's, some virtual hugging because most of it's through Zoom. But what really happens is you start asking the questions. When did you first feel this emotion? When did this first come up? Okay, what are you making this mean about yourself? What are you telling yourself right now that this means? And when they get to the bottom of what it means to them and where it all started, then they're able to release it. Because, and not that you necessarily have to remember every detail or have the memories, but if you can say to yourself, wow, yeah, you know what? Even when I was 10 years old, I went to school and I got bullied. And I always felt like I wasn't good enough since then. And now you've created this whole pattern of showing up as not being good enough. And now you're in the boardroom, you're not sharing what you want to think or what you're thinking or what you want to say. You're hiding yourself because you're so afraid of what other people are going to say. Once you can figure all of that out, then the emotional release part, so many different amazing ways to do that. Some people prefer writing. Sometimes I have dance parties with my clients. Like we'll just get up and we dance. You
Wow.
want to turn the camera off and you want to take a pillow and just hit the bed and scream as loud as you want, go for it. But movement, get it all out.
Wow, that is amazing. Actually, we went through that process with one of my mentors, where you bringing up the loss, the anger, the
Yeah,
emotion, and then like so many people, they'll go through stages in their life where they really wish they could go back and change it, or I wish I had said that to that person instead of just letting them just steamroll me.
right?
And
Yeah,
that moment where you suddenly let the bad girl out
yeah,
because you acted like the good girl there, and as a result you kind of got flattened.
exactly.
So she really got us to go like into the pillow and just let the badass come through,
Love that. Love that.
and just say all the things that
Yeah.
you
Would have
didn't say.
said, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
because the subconscious doesn't know the difference between fantasy and reality.
That's
So
right.
once you set the intention and then you do that, it kind of like brings it all out into the
Yeah.
forefront. So yeah, so that's incredible. So tell us about what this woman can really expect on the other side
Yeah.
of working with you. Obviously she's come in, she's got these, feelings of loss and disempowerment. Who is she? Can you describe her? Like, typically who is she? Is she corporate? Is she, what's
You
going
know,
on in
I
her life?
yes, I see her in my mind as corporate, but I'll be honest with you, it's not that she's necessarily in corporate. Her attitude is corporate. And when I say her attitude is corporate, it's all about everything has to be done a certain way. I have to make sure I'm getting things right. I have to show up, very professionally all the time. I can't really show the real me because people won't take me seriously. So I have to hide my emotions. I have to hide if I'm spiritual. I have to pretend none of that exists and I have to check it on the door on my way into work. And so it's a mindset. That's why I call it the corporate thinking as opposed to just a pure corporate woman. Because I've helped nurses, I've helped teachers, I've helped mothers who were raised with that mindset but aren't working right now. But they all have that same pressure that they're putting on themselves. On the other side is so much self-acceptance and self-love that you no longer feel the need to live up to other people's standards. You define what the standards are that are going to run your life. And you voice those, you speak your truth, both in your personal and your professional life. So your needs are met. You're showing up more fulfilled and more happy in both areas of your life. And you're finding joy in the little moments. That was actually the last part that I forgot to tell you about what I have done. I really look for joy in the little things every single day, whether it's at work or at home. And when you can do that, any situation is easily navigatable, if that's even a word.
I love it. I absolutely love that. And I love the answer you've given. They've got that mindset. It's not about them being kind of
Yeah,
specifically that person, but they have a certain characteristic trait.
yeah,
And, you've really tapped into that.
yeah.
So, when they come back to you and they say to you, oh, wow, Afsheen, by the way, how many sessions do they usually have with you?
So I do 6 months. And it's 2 sessions per month. So it's 12 sessions total. And, obviously unlimited support in between. Some will text, some email. Everybody has different platforms that they prefer. Some prefer Voxer. So I'm always reachable, but the sessions themselves are twice a month.
That's amazing because you're giving them the integration, the
Yeah,
time to come in, have their session, and then, integrate so that they can
yeah,
recognize what's happening on the journey.
yeah,
And plus, you're giving them that support
yeah,
where they can be assisted and nurtured and supported through that
exactly,
integration.
exactly.
And I know that works even in a group program. You
Mhm.
probably find that your group program, each and every woman inside of it feels like she's getting an individualized
Yeah,
service
yes,
because they're each getting held in their own capacity, which is
yeah.
absolutely incredible. So tell us how a person whom is really ready to
Mhm.
shift the needle in their life
Yeah.
and step forward and get empowered through your beautiful, service, your tailor-made individualized service. How can they get in contact with you, Afsheen?
So I have two main platforms that I operate from. Instagram, which is if you send me a direct message, either me or my team will get back to you within 24 hours. I have a website as well. I prefer Instagram only because I think they'll get a better flavor through Instagram because you're seeing the videos, you're seeing the actual content, right? A website, I I'm not a big website person, but that's just me. I feel like you're seeing pictures of a person and yes, maybe a little video here and there, but I like to really show me. I want people to know who they're getting. So I always send them to Instagram first. They can watch the videos and see if it lands, if they connect. And then once you message me, I will send you an application and then we'll hop on the phone and we'll figure out if it's a good fit. I think it's very important both for the coach and the client to be on the same page on the outcome they're looking to create.
Absolutely. So we'll have the link here.
Yeah.
And if you click the link, you will be able to get to Afsheen and organize that you can get ready to totally empower your life. Now, if I was to ask you, your client is just praying for your service,
Yeah.
and, what would you love to say? If you could say, one last thing
Yeah.
that you really want to, help her to understand about the journey with you
Yeah.
and with herself, what would you love to share?
I would love to tell her believe in yourself enough to take that first step for yourself.
Absolutely. I love that. And this is one of the absolute gifts that we give in this podcast because you get to hear Afsheen's heart. You get to know about what her own personal walk was, as well as you get to know the history of, you know, what she does and how she has come to learn. I mean, Jack Canfield, he's got to be like one of the best. So, you know, when I learned that you had worked through him, I just thought, wow, I am definitely bringing this lady on board so she can bless the people that are going to be listening. So I just want to thank you so much for, you know, what you've given today, freely of, you know, your
Thank you.
generous self, which obviously, you know, you've learnt to that giving is such a gift. But I also love the fact that you've also understood that looking after, number one, looking after you first is going to mean looking after all these women that you take care of.
Yes, yes. And it's been such an honor, Terry. It really, you have, for, I'm sure your listeners know you already, but in the time that I've known you, I've just seen such a beautiful heart and such a beautiful soul from you. And you are such a gift to our world. So thank you for having me on and really letting me be part of your world.
Wow. Thank you so much. It's an absolute pleasure. So, with that, stay backstage and I will see you soon. And thank you again.
Thank you.
Wow, what an amazing woman. So, if you felt into that and you've really heard Afsheen's heart, go ahead, click the link and get straight onto that and make sure you book in with her. But maybe you have a God given calling that you want to rise up and really bring it to the surface. Maybe you're ready to, you know, launch your legacy, speak your message to the world. And even better, maybe you'd like to really dig deep and find out what your genius zone is. If you are ready to share your gift with the world, become empowered in so doing so, and bring your magic so that you can really shine here on podcast, why not just go over to terrymessenger.com? You will find the booking link. Book in a call, absolutely free, and I will see you on our next show. Bye for now.